What did I say?
You disagree with his views on subjects like body count.
Yeah.
So I guess what specifically do you disagree with?
Okay, I would say I think that a lot of times when people are like, "Oh, I don't really care about, I don't think it should matter," but then don't care to share.
Mm-hmm.
I understand like that's contradictory, but I also think that to an extent it doesn't matter, but it does. So I think that it's contradictory, but it can both be at the same time, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I guess to argue the other person's
No,
side.
that doesn't make sense.
Well, here,
Like,
Andrew.
it's
To argue the other person's side, Andrew. So you could think something matters, but also not want to reveal it like to the broader public.
'Cause-
But then why
out
would you
to
say
the
it doesn't
masses.
matter?
Because I think it's like a more of a general term, like it doesn't really matter, but like at the end of the day, it's more between like the partner and you.
So then it
Like,
matters.
I think it's
Yeah.
more so being like the number doesn't matter, but
Yeah.
telling this amount of people is what matters.
Yeah, I agree.
Then it matters.
Yeah.
So
fair.
here, I'll give you.
I think it's a bad way to put it that it doesn't
well, let me
matter.
give
but
let me give a counterexample, if this is true. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, look, to the broader public, this may matter, right? But to me and whoever my potential partner is, it doesn't matter. But let me give you a thought exercise to see if this is true. Do you think you would be more likely to reveal your body count if you had slept with 0 men versus 20 men?
yeah, no, I 100%.
Well, then it
agree.
matters. It matters a lot. Whether
I mean,
or not
it
you want
depends
to
how
admit that it doesn't
comfortable-
matter, clearly it matters. Because otherwise, why would you reveal it at 0? Right? Because then there's no shame, right?
Well, I mean,
sure.
to actually think about it.
I think there also is shame in
Like,
doing
for
that.
example, someone might, if we're talking about how much money somebody makes, and in a dating context, for example, do you care about somebody's finances? And they say, doesn't matter. I don't care. My financial situation doesn't matter at all. Oh, okay, well, how much money do you have in the bank account? Someone might not want to reveal that.
Yeah.
Not having anything to do with whether it matters or not, just because they prefer to keep that private.
Yeah.
If I can understand the other side's position on this.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want to...
Then it matters.
Yeah, 'cause they don't wanna get
Right,
robbed.
no, sure.
I wouldn't want to say how
I
much
think
money
I
I made.
think it's
I'd get
more that
robbed.
it doesn't matter in like a general context of who you're dating and who you're talking to, but when you're on a platform like this and there's a bunch of people watching, it's something that you would want to keep private, I guess.
Yeah, but in that same situation, if you, in the personal finance department, made $35,000 a year, yeah, maybe you don't want to reveal that to the public. If you made $20 million a year, I don't think he'd give a shit. I think he'd be like, yeah, I make $20 million.
But wouldn't you also be kind of like scared of putting?
They got security.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, they don't
I
care.
mean, that's true. That's true.
They don't
that's
care.
true.
So I mean,
Vote.
the point of it, I still would contend is that it matters. It clearly matters, and clearly people think it matters. Otherwise, they would have no problem revealing it.
I think the number matters less, and like where you are now in life matters more. Like if a guy had slept with 70 people in his early 20s and now is like, you know, not living that same lifestyle and is ready for like a locked down relationship,
Yep.
I think that's fine.
I
But
think that I'm going to agree with you that it seems to me from talking to many women that men who were promiscuous and now are not promiscuous, they don't seem to give a shit very much. The opposite is not true. Men seem to care a great deal about whether or not a woman was promiscuous or not promiscuous. So while I agree with you in principle, right? So I would agree with you, or I would even make the claim, stronger claim, that promiscuity in men and women is equally as bad. But they don't view it the same way.
I agree. I
When they
100%
hold each other to the standard, right?
Yeah.
So women don't view male promiscuity the same way men view female promiscuity.
I think society validates guys being like, oh, good on him. Like
I don't
he
think
got
it's just a form of social stigma. I think that it mostly comes from the idea of paternity. So the idea being, paternity testing is recent. So all throughout human history, the best way that you could assure that you knew that that's my kid is if you knew that chick was only sleeping with you. That's, how else could you determine it? And so that's why I think that revolt kind of, or disgust is built in with promiscuity when it comes to women, but not for men. They just don't view it the same way.
I think that's a fair argument, yeah.
Yeah.
I think with the
body count, though, when you think about it, you should realistically divide it by how many years you've been sexually active, because when you do that, it really doesn't seem that bad. Depending on the number, like if you do have a judgment on it. Because I think if you have like a high body count, but you've been sexually active for like 20 years, you know, it really, couple people a year. It's like when you think about it.
Yeah, but so again, I can agree with you in principle, but not in the practical. So again, let's look at it from a man's perspective.
Well, they're not going to do that. They're just going to see the full number. Is that what you're
Nope.
saying?
I think that they could even kind of engage with what you're saying, right? And you could even hold them to the same standard. But they still want, if they're going to settle down with you, generally they want children, right? Just generally speaking. Maybe not all of them,
Yeah.
but generally they will. The idea of pair bonding, or can you stay with me in the long term, if you've been with way less men, they think that that number goes way higher, right? If you've been with way less men, your chances of bonding with me forever and ever and ever are going to be way higher than if you've been with, 100 men. And think of it from their perspective this way, on the logic of, what do you have to compare me to? So this is why virgins, for instance, who get married, they often do report higher sexual satisfaction, and they stay together for way longer. And when social scientists investigate this, they go, okay, why? That's kind of odd. Well, there's nothing to compare it to. So let's say even the sex in this relationship was bad from your perspective, having been with 50 guys, let's say, but hypothetically.
Would they
If
both
you-
have to be virgins?
Yeah, both of them in this case. If you have nothing to compare it to, I'm sure it's the best sex in the world.
Right.
Right?
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
so that's one of the good reasons why having a low body count probably really good for longevity instead of bad.
I would also agree with her. I mean, so if you take, for example, a 30-year-old who has a body count of 10 versus a 18-year-old who has a body count of 10, clearly the promiscuity is greater in the 18-year-old.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it's the same body count, but
gonna have to argue this one. Though.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
So let's say it's two women who are 30, right? And one racked up 20 bodies from the time she was 18 till the time she was 30. And one racked up 30 bodies at 20 and then slept with nobody else till they were 30. I don't think a man would give a shit. I think that they would still look at the totality of the body count and be just as horrified either way.
yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. But I mean, if the comparison is, for example, if the man is choosing between these two women, say a 20-year-old who slept with 10 men in a period of 2 years,
Yeah.
versus a woman who's 30 who slept with 10 men over the course of 12 years, it could indicate two different things.
Yeah, I agree, but I would say if all things were equal, they were the same attractiveness level, this and that, they would probably go for the 30-year-old. But if they had the same exact body count and they had the choice of the more virile 19, 20-year-old, I still think they would go for that one if they had the same body count.
Yeah, but she wouldn't be seen as like faithful, because if she's still
Neither
if
would the
she's having sex
30-year-old.
with-
That's the
It
problem.
may be the case. It may be the case, but in terms of like the actual his thought process when it comes to the promiscuity component of it,
Yeah.
he can still determine like, well, on this specific metric, the 30-year-old edges out the 18-year-old, but I'm still more attracted to the 18-year-old.
Yes, if all things are equal,
Right.
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. So.
I just think that that in that case, if you're just going between these two isolated cases, I guess I can agree with that in spirit. But I think when this is applied
Sure.
in a broader scale to how men engage, or at least how I've heard them talk about how they engage with relationships, they're looking at the overarch and they say, okay, the number of men you've slept with is definitely going to determine how loyal I think you're going to be to me. That's definitely in their mind.